I'm here with Kenta Honjo from Sony. So Kenta, why don't you just start with telling us what you do at Sony Electronics?
Sure, yeah. I'm the product manager for Sony for interchangeable lens cameras. So that includes all the alpha cameras that we see here today.
Right. So why did you drop the NEX brandings? I know you did until quite recently have Sony NEX, and then Sony Alpha as two distinct lines. Why did you drop NEX?
Yeah, it was really painful to do that, but NEX was never meant to be a brand name. You know, it was technically part of the model name, NEX5, NEX6. So people were starting to get confused what Sony really stood for. What was Alpha? What was NEX? And it was, NEX cameras always used to be Alpha cameras. So we wanted to consolidate that so there was less confusion. And now we call it Alpha mount system, in which we have the A mount system and the E mount system.
Do you think NEX ended up with sort of low-end connotations?
Yeah, I think so too. It was great at the beginning to differentiate what we were doing in the industry, but now there's benefits to both A mount and E mount cameras, and you can use A mount lenses on E mount cameras to call it Alpha mount cameras, under the Alpha naming brand, it makes a lot more sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So can you talk us through the most recent sort of high-profile product, I think, in the sub-full frame Alpha line is the A6000.
Yep.
Why don't you just quickly talk us through that product?
Sure, yeah. A6000 is this camera right here. It's one of our best-selling cameras right now. It's amazing in terms of autofocus. So it's the world's fastest autofocus at 0.06 seconds to acquire focus. But not only that, you get 11 frames per second for shooting. You have an EVF. You have lots of direct controls. So everything that you ever wish in a DSLR is packed into this. And with the AF capabilities of the sensor being so outstanding, it is better than your DSLR, especially when you're comparing it to the same price point cameras.
So you say this is actually competing on a level playing field or exceeding the capabilities of DSLR autofocus?
Definitely, yes.
Is that true of your entire Alpha lineup, or is that unique to the A6000?
Definitely the latest innovations that we had with our image sensors makes us placed in that tier of performance. So the A6000 is a great example. On the full frame side, I think the AF capabilities are not yet there, but that's not just a problem of time. We are innovating very quickly and trying to get the A6000 type of AF performance into full frame cameras. So that would be the next stage. But the A7 series too, very, very highly capable. It may not have the AF performance of the A6000, but it does different things really well. So the A7S right here has 12 megapixels full frame, enabling it to do very excellent low light shots.
So how far off, if you say that the Alpha 7 series doesn't quite have the same AF performance as the 6000, how far off are you from achieving that?
It's hard to say, and obviously we can't talk about future product planning, but I think it's very close in the near future, yeah.
So are you aiming, long term, are you aiming at professional photographers, including sports photographers, with the full frame Alpha line?
Totally, yes. Mirrorless design is enabled by sensor technology, and once the sensors get better and better, then there is less of a need for a mirror-based design. So
do you think, how much longer do you think, just in general, the DSLRs will have any unique selling points over a mirrorless product?
For a very specialized niche, very high-end sports photography, maybe there will be. But more and more, as we've seen in the world, actually, in the US, mirrorless adoption rate is not as high as other counterparts like Asia and Europe.
Right.
But we are seeing the transition happening very quickly as well.
So you still find it harder to sell mirrorless products in America compared to other parts of the world?
In somewhat, yes, it is. To be very honest, it is very difficult. But what we're trying to do differently is educate the customer. So we're launching a marketing campaign this fall that we're really excited about. It has a lot of exciting photography in it. So be sure to check that out as well.
So do you put that sort of lingering prejudice down to just people not really realizing what the cameras can do, or what?
That's part of the reason as well. And I think the lack of participation from Canon and Nikon also is a little bit hard to tell the mirrorless story. But once everybody's on board, then I think people will start to notice how great the mirrorless system is.
Great, thank you. So we talked about cameras, but let's talk about lenses really quickly. You're building out the Alpha line, APS-C and full frame. pretty quickly. And what are the gaps in your lens lineup now as far as you're concerned?
Yes, we get that question a lot. I know there's people out there that want to hire a zoom lens camera. One of the challenges of making such a lens like a 300 f4, prime lens, is the size. So we're trying to make the camera smaller, but how do we make the lens small enough but reach long enough to satisfy those needs? We also get lots of requests for teleconverters. I think the latest round of announcements that we had at Photokina, we announced several more lenses, I think 7 more lenses. So those will be filling in the areas that we didn't have, like macro, 90 millimeter macro. We have a super fast 35 millimeter, for example. And those will be coming out later in the fiscal year of 2014. So little by little, we're still trying to build up the E-mount lens system. But once it's there, I think there'll be less holes to talk about.
It's just taking the full frame cameras for a minute. What's the sort of #1 lens that your users are asking you for right now?
Let me see. I think it's the telephoto prime lens,
Really?
I think somewhere in the 300 range,
Excellent, thank you. So let's talk about it's all one brand now, it's all Alpha. You have the E-mount and you have the A-mount. The A-mounts are they're not DSLRs, they're SLTs, but they're the DSLR style cameras.
Right.
What is the future for those? Will those two lines remain distinct? Will they merge? Will you retire A-mount? What's going to happen?
That's a good question, and we obviously get lots of customers being very upset. Some are concerned, and we totally understand that, because what's happening right now is, because E-mount is still not at the level of A-mount lenses, we're announcing and producing a lot more lenses, and in one perspective, you can see that there's a lot more development on the E-mount side, but we are still committed with the A-mount system. We are still developing and incorporating some of the latest technology into A-mount cameras. For example, the A77 Mark II, amazing AF performance, and some of the components being shared with the Alpha 6000. So to the question where it will merge, it won't merge, we don't know yet. But for now, it'll be very distinct, A-mount, E-mount.
Because the Alpha mount goes back to the Konica Minolta mount, doesn't it? It goes back a long way.
Exactly.
Do you still have people who are loyal Sony users who were loyal Konica Minolta users?
Oh, totally, yes. So Konica Minolta has been making A-mount lenses since 1985. So as you can imagine,
it's the first AF system in consumer level cameras, right?
And so, lots of prestige, lots of history, and lots of lenses as well. So in order to match that level of lens lineup, we need to produce a lot more E-mount lenses. So it may seem that we're producing, we're just focusing on E-mount, but that's not true. A-mount is still here. So
if someone asked you as a company, as a manager within Alpha, what are you most focused on right now? What would you say to them?
I would say AF technology.
Right.
And I think that's the #1 key of acquiring new customers. And AF technology is not just about acquiring focus really quickly. It's about having a wider focus area, ability to object recognize, so do subject tracking well. So there's a lot of components in AF technology that still needs to be improved. And the Alpha 6000 is just the first step. And we want to expand that both into full frame cameras like the A7 series, and also downwards as well. So the Alpha 5100 makes it enable for customers who can't afford A6000 at a more affordable price, to get that AF performance at a more affordable price. So
the Alpha products, the full frame Alpha products, were something of a leap in the dark.
Yes.
I mean, they were quite pioneering products. And what have you learned along the way? It's not 3 generations, 3 models now in the same generation. What have you learned from that?
There's still the question, which one is a better body style, right? And there's endless debates about it. But generally, most people like the SLR design with the higher end cameras, and people really like the rangefinder design, because most of these users are actually just putting it into their backpack or day bag. They want a nice, solid, minimalistic design. So that was very interesting to learn that. So there was one point in our product development where the question was, should we just use SLR design or rangefinder designs? But the consumers have spoken and said they want both. So we're still experimenting with different body designs. We're still experimenting with the user experience as well. And obviously EVFs are very important for our customers. So lots of learning and more to come, I guess.
I'm sure. So leaving aside autofocus for a minute, I mean, what's the most consistent feedback you get from your full-frame mirrorless users? What do they want most in the next generation?
A lot of them want customizability.
Right.
Yeah. So they love the features, but some features are not customizable yet. So those are things that I'm always getting requests, and I'm trying to incorporate them into future products. And one challenge is once you get so many customizations into a camera like this, then the menu becomes really overwhelming. Yeah. So it's incorporating everybody's feedback, but also making the user experience as streamlined as possible.
To what extent can you adjust that in firmware?
There's some that you can do, but surprisingly, there's a lot that you can't do, which is kind of hard to explain to most consumers. I wish we could incorporate everything in a firmware update, but there are some limitations to it. There are some features that people request that would actually need a physical new chip on the motherboard.
Right. Could you give us just one example?
For example, codecs.
Video codecs.
Video codecs. For example, A7S, we always get, why can't you do 4K internal recording? That would need an upgrade on the motherboard side. So it's not as easy as just upgrading the software.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. So we talked about the alpha range. Let's talk very quickly about the QX series, because that's, I know that there was something of an experiment, I think, putting these things out in the world. These are lens sensor modules that are meant to be used with smartphones. They can clip on or be used remotely. Generation has now entered its second iteration with the QX1.
Right.
I mean, what have you learned from putting these products out into the world?
It's a little bit consistent to what Sony does and stands for, which is innovation. And we try to really push the envelope in terms of digital imaging. QX1 is a great example for that. And it is still a niche product. We're not expecting sales volume of the Alpha 6000, but it does satisfy the need for really creative users out there.
And that's an E-lens mount and a sensor.
Right.
That you can put whatever lens you want on and attach it to your smartphone.
Exactly. So some creative uses I've seen are obviously on drones. I've seen it used in events as well. So they put it on a monopod, shoot it up.
Right.
And it's less obstructive than having your iPad or iPhone out.
Yeah.
So that's been a very interesting use case as well.
What's the coolest thing you've seen done with the QX?
I haven't seen it yet, but I would really want to see an underwater housing for it. It's nice and small.
Yeah.
Has a APS-C sensor in it, so that would be a really cool thing to see.
Great. So you excited?
Yes, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kenta. That was fun.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for watching.